Welcome to Musical Time Machines, a podcast exploring the transformative and transcendental properties of the various musical genres, artists, and performances that we have seen and heard in our lives. Hello, I'm Mrs. Walker, and I am very excited to begin our new podcast journey together. When I say together, I mean you will have the opportunity to hear different voices, perspectives, and influences. Students will interview parents, teachers, administrators, professionals, and each other. My hope is that through our exploration of these influences and experiences, we will experience cross-generational connections through the power of music and the arts. Our very first episode is part 1 of a 3-part interview with our very own Mr. Gale, the assistant head of the middle school, and his journey as a musician, performer, and overall music lover. Let's dive in, everyone.
Oh, well, thank you so much, Mr. Gale, for being on with us today. I'm just going to ask you some questions about music and the effect of music growing up. As you may or may not know, one of our assignments coming up for students in my class is to actually interview parents. Some of these same questions. And so we are kind of a mock interview, but a real interview, to get to know you a little bit more, but also show how a podcast interview might look or sound, I should say, because you won't see us. All right. So first of all, how are you doing, Mr. Gale?
I'm wonderful, Mrs. Walker. Thank you for giving me this opportunity to talk about one of my favorite things in the entire world. And as I said before, I will try and keep my responses short because I can talk on and on and on about music. So I love this. One of my favorite things is hearing stories from other people that you wouldn't necessarily hear, because I think that's how we learn more about each other. So thank you for this opportunity.
Oh, thank you. And I agree with you 100%. We need to hear each other's stories to see how similar we really all are, even if our ages are a little bit different. All right. So my first question for you: what type of music did you listen to growing up? And this could be you could start as a child and then maybe go on into your teenage years. Maybe an artist you like to listen to that your parents didn't quite approve of, but you really liked, and maybe music you like to listen to with your family.
Well, first, I don't think my parents approved of any of the music that I listened to, but we will save that. I think I owe my music creds to both my father and my brother. My father loved music. He still loves music. My father loved Broadway shows. And so growing up with him from a little child, he brought me to musicals. Wherever we were going, we were listening to music, and they were always Broadway shows. So I still, grew up listening to Cats and Phantom of the Opera and all these classic shows and knew the words to them. And so, that gave me a great sense of the theater and all of those classic shows. Hello, Dolly and West Side Story and a lot of those musicals that came out of the 40s and 50s, and Rodgers and Hammerstein, and giants of music. So that gave me a great understanding of just sound and telling a story through a song, which I really loved. Now, my brother was 13 years older than me. And he loved classic rock. And of course, when he was a senior in high school, I was a pre-kindergartner. So I wanted to dress like him. I wanted to listen to everything that he was listening to. And that was just when CDs were first coming out. And I remember as a little child looking at the back of a CD, and I loved all the colors that it created, and loved the feeling of looking at CDs and their covers. I remember some of the first albums that I saw was Fleetwood Mac, Allman Brothers Band, the Grateful Dead. I remember Sunday afternoons and going through his CDs and listening to him in the car. I remember being in the back seat with my sister singing Joy to the World and wanting to know all the words to it. And so from an early age, music was the soundtrack to my life, and I loved everything about music. Now, as I got into an adolescent in 5th grade, I loved, it got a little harder. It got a little grungier. As I got a little harder and a little edgier, so did my taste in music. In 5th grade, Nirvana Nevermind came out, and changed my life. And that's when I started listening to different types. Back it was classic rock, leading up to probably when I was 10 years old, classic rock and musicals. But as I grew into my own, I started developing my own taste and sound in music. And I love grunge music, which was in the early 90s. So Nirvana, Alice in Chains, Soundgarden, Pearl Jam, Nirvana's Nevermind and Pearl Jam came out with those albums almost back to back, and it changed music and it changed me. I also loved rap at the time, was getting into rap and those types of sounds. I grew up in South Carolina and Georgia, where Motown was always the backbeat of everything that we did, and it's what we danced to, and it's what afternoon and evening nights and dinners were surrounded by. So I have to say that things, I would probably say, I remember this in 5th grade. I wanted to buy there were tapes, and I wanted to buy a Guns N' Roses tape. And it was Use Your Illusion 1 and Use Your Illusion 2. And that was when they first started using explicit lyric stickers on tapes. And so that was a clear sign to my father that he should not buy this album for me, because he had no idea who Guns N' Roses were, but he didn't like the sound of it, the name, and he saw that explicit lyric sticker and said, no way. And I remember probably a week later, back then you could make a tape from a tape. You could record a tape from a tape. So my buddy brought me Guns N' Roses, Use Your Illusion 1 and Use Your Illusion 2, gave it to me, and I just devoured it and enjoyed it. There was something, as you're kind of discovering yourself and your own, there's something risky about risky music, and there's something dangerous about that that's appealing. And I've always grew into myself in high school in loving more jam band music, like the Grateful Dead, like Fish, Widespread Panic were big bands that I enjoyed. But I love all genres of music, and that's what I really appreciated about my high school years. Was I started listening to punk rock music, and I started listening to jazz, and I started listening to heavy metal, and I started listening to rap, and I started listening to blues, and that just developed more and more, almost like these seeds were being planted and grew into this giant tree, and all these different branches represented different genres of music. And to this day, I don't care what type of genre it is. I love all different types of genre music. As long as it's great music, I'll listen to it.
Thank you for listening. Join us next week for part 2 of Mr. Gale's interview, where we talk about past concert experiences we will never forget. All of the music you hear today is composed by my husband, James Walker. You can find more of his music on SoundCloud through the username Score Runner Productions. Have a wonderful week, and we'll see you soon.